Welcome to the Untangled show on 107 FM, diving into behind the scenes of business. I'm Dave Petersen. There's no shortage of headlines right now: rising cost, economic uncertainty, regulation, political noise and the changing markets. Everyone seems to have an opinion about where business is heading. But while all that plays out, there's thousands of SMEs and local business owners are doing what they've always done. They're just getting on with it. They're adapting, problem solving and grinding it out, building businesses in the real world. And that's why these conversations matter, because some of the best lessons in business don't just come from the headlines or the theory. They become from people doing the work, people taking risks, changing directions and backing themselves. And often they're drawing their own map. And that's why the Untangled show is here. For you, it's less noise, more real business.
This is Untangled on 107 FM, proudly brought to you by the Property Directors Club, connecting the people who shape Hull's property and business landscape. To be a part of it, visit propertydirectorsclub.co.uk.
Drawing your own path in part one. So today's guest is a perfect example of just that. I'm joined by Daniel Scott of Scott's Lets, entrepreneur, property investor, and now about to launch his own letting agency. Welcome, Dan, to the Untangled show.
Thank you very much, Dave, for having me on.
I love this story, Dan. It's conventional, isn't it, really? Family farming background, apprenticeship in piping and welding. I don't even know what that is. Mechanical engineering, far too, superior for me. And then you've gone on to project manage and design. Whilst property in the background, that bit intrigues me, certainly. So from 2010, and then you made the leap into property full time. So it's great to have you on. And, one thing that we kind of try to do on this show is really help people, figure out their journey and just learn little bits from you. So thank you very much for joining us. So can we jump into a little bit more background about yourself? Talk about, how the maybe farming life kind of created the work ethic. Was that fair to say?
I think very much so, yeah. From a very young age, I was always out helping my dad on the farm. Then I came to the grand old age of 13 where you can legally drive a tractor. So I've been on a tractor since 13, combines. But before that, I was always outside, sweeping up the sheds, anything that can be done, or just riding in the tractor for fun.
Like my vision of working on a farm is just hard graft. Right? I did a paper round and I thought that was hard when I was a kid. I'm guessing looking at yourself, an early morning on a farm might be a bit different to the paper round. So what do the jobs entail? Is that where you got the work ethic and the entrepreneurship?
I think so. I think if you've got parents that are self-employed, obviously they don't stop working. They don't do a 9 to 5. The normal hours, they just keep on working until the job's done, basically. From anyone in business to trades, running a shop.
Do you still do that now? Do you work all hours God sends?
A little bit guilty of that, unfortunately, yeah. Trying to get more systems in place, so I don't do, but yeah, you naturally do. Don't you? I don't like unread emails in my inbox, so whatever hours it takes, I'll try and get them unread, actioned.
The pathway that you followed, though, was on the farm, but obviously school is a big part of your life. You've studied very well to go into the roles that you've done. How was that journey for young Daniel?
School was always okay. I wasn't a great academic by any means. So primary school, secondary school, then went to do some A-levels, AS levels, then A-levels. But I just did the AS levels and I thought, I've had enough of this. Going to go and get an apprenticeship, earn some money, had enough of education.
So the decision was just around that. It wasn't, I want to be an engineer. Did family lead that? The decision to come off a family farm to do something like that must have been quite difficult too.
Yeah, it's not a big farm, so it probably couldn't take me full time at that point. So a lot of my friends were getting apprenticeships, electricians, hands-on work. So I thought I'll go do that. Then I ended up doing a pipe fitting welding apprenticeship, which I didn't particularly set out to do. I just kind of got led down that path, kind of thing. So. Yeah.
But there must have been something, though, that did trigger, because, you've mentioned, obviously, the property side, and you've been very successful in that. But changing that day-to-day job into doing property, was there anything that happened to trigger that?
When I did my apprenticeship, came out of time working. It was in a construction industry, so it was always hire and fire. So I was working with people, and they're always getting let go when the projects came to an end. So I wanted something that I could kind of rely on, really. So like property income, but I mainly did it for a pension because I was self-employed, so not getting a pension. And property's always fascinated me. Always liked it. Always seemed a solid investment. Not quite sure. Don't know where that came from, to be honest, but I've always liked it. Then, so I got my first one, mainly as a pension. Obviously, it's always there, and getting on the property ladder. Then I just enjoyed renovating it. Not that I did much work to that one. My mum did quite a lot of the work. Actually, when I got my first property, I didn't know the difference between gloss and undercoat, so I think that says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, painted or doing the work. Look, I'm led. My mum certainly was, one to inspire me and teach me how to do things. So I can certainly, relate to that. I think that there's more to property than that, though, isn't there? You've got buying assets, let alone, it still takes a big jump, mate, to go from, a solid income. And I think right in saying you've got 5 years now full time in property.
Yeah.
That's a big choice. How did you go about that?
I was on a project and I was just seeing it out. Otherwise, I'd have probably made the leap sooner. Yeah. But I was enjoying working at the time. I'd advise to anyone, I'd always say try and keep your day job as long as you can. When I first was qualified, I wanted to do property full time. I might be earning 25 grand a year. So that was obviously quite a few years ago. And my aim was to get 25 grand from property. But then I thought, well, if I do that, my growth is going to slow rapidly, even though I'll be self-employed or full-time self-employed in property. So I just kept hold of the day job and helped fund the property portfolio.
Often people, and entrepreneurs, they're craving that kind of freedom, that ability to, as you rightly said, you was looking at it as pension, and then you went, well, actually, I'll just, stop working and do property full time, which does slow the growth because now you've got to pay for you to live rather than properties just paying for each other to kind of purchase. But, along that journey and changing that method for your life, because you're a long way off pension age and now you're spending your pension. Do you kind of worry about that?
No, it never occurred to me thinking about that. Yeah. But to me, the assets, the pension, the rental income want the pension. When I first started out, I just wanted the rent to cover the mortgage. Then 20, 30 years time, when you want to cash in, in theory, you've still got a mortgage because you're paying repayment only, but the assets, the pension.
Yeah. So again, it comes back down to that model then. So, you said actually, looking at property for pension, and you understand that, not necessarily that money coming in, but that was a byproduct of purchasing these properties for the long-term vision, and that's enabled you to have the freedom in turn then. Is that right in saying?
Yeah. Agree with that.
Perfect. And, is it, I guess just wanting to dig a little bit further, Dan, you've gone through this journey. You're now property professional. You're making a new leap in setting up an estate agency. But along that journey, there's got to have been some, fairly critical errors or, something where, that's just changed your focus or made you adapt in certain ways. Is there anything that kind of stands out for especially people coming into the property world?
I've always done just standard buy-to-lets. I call them vanilla buy-to-lets. You can't really go wrong with that. So I started that in 2010 when I got my first one. I think it was 7 years. Then I went into the student market. But I've kind of always stayed with those two, not gone into Airbnb, which obviously has been really popular over the past few years. Just stuck to kind of what I know, I think.
Yeah, and that's kind of then avoided, I guess, the pitfalls or the risks. So you're keeping them risks very minimum to continue the growth of your portfolio and a really stable life, I guess.
Yeah, we've done a lot of refurbishments as well, which has also helped. I'm quite hands-on with obviously doing my apprenticeship, etc. I think most things you can learn. So that's helped grow as well. So you're buying them in, what kind of conditions would you describe the properties as? Unloved, we'll say.
So
giving them
you're
some
repurposing her. I think that's obviously a clear passion. You've got into property, probably not really knowing why. Yes, to tick the box of a pension, and then decided you actually really enjoy this. Getting hands-on, fulfilling that, security and that asset for legacy. Is that then? Obviously, you've got children. Is that where you see it as well? You're creating that for them.
It's an option for them if they wanted to come to the business later on and when they're older days. I've built a decent property portfolio. I've just kind of kept going. I don't know really why. I just enjoy it, I think.
Yeah.
So then it can become a legacy.
Like I say, it's just really interesting to me that you've stepped out of a kind of family background and staying in a farm. I think your brother stays within the farm. So.
Yeah, so I'm older with us full time. So I'm still helping on the farm every now and again. I give him a hand, mainly in summer when it's harvest time.
When it's nice, pick and choose, right?
Yeah,
pick and choose, nice weather.
I'm always on the tractor.
Yeah, fair enough.
Go back to the heart.
Yeah, I think that's just a really good view of obviously yourself into the life of business and work. I think we'll deep dive a little bit more into that in part 2.